Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Divisional Round preview with me, Brian from MadMen Sports and Alex from Beyond Football. We are so glad to be back. Alex, how are you feeling this week?
I'm feeling pretty well. I'm feeling really good about these games that we have in front of us this weekend. It's gonna be a great weekend.
Yeah, and coming into the week, I think we both did pretty good last week. We both admitted that there was a chance we could have gone 0-4, 1-3. You went 500, I went 3-1, so pretty solid performance when it came to the fact that there was just 4 really close games. Well, really close games looking at it beforehand. Most of them were exciting aside from that first one that we both agreed on. So, fair warning, people, if me and Alex agree on a game, there's a good chance the outcome's going to be right. I mean, if you think about it. So
far, yeah, the record's been pretty good.
Yeah, right? And I was very glad to be wrong about the one that I picked incorrectly. So, with that being said, let's get right to it. 4 more games that, honestly, if you ask me, could go in either direction. We'll start with the Chiefs hosting the red-hot Colts. 10-11 in their last 11 games for the Colts. 10-1 in their last 11 games. The Colts are coming off that 21-7 road victory. Do they have a shot in Arrowhead to upset the Chiefs? They're 6-point underdogs right now.
I think they do have a shot, but I don't think they're going to make it. I think the Chiefs are just going to be too explosive when it comes down to it. Now, the Colts are a dome team, and that has, in the past, always kind of come back to bite them. Well, that's part of the reason why Peyton Manning hasn't been as successful in the playoffs as he might have been during the regular season, because once January comes around and he either needs to go to Miami to play in the heat or to go to New York and play in the cold, and Kansas City isn't exactly warm in January, it's going to be a tough task. I know Andrew Luck can withstand those conditions, but I think Patrick Mahomes is just better suited to the climate, and I think the Chiefs' offense is going to outscore the Colts' offense.
Now, kind of going with that question, do you feel like Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback Andy Reid has ever had to work with? Because I know there's a lot of a lot of polarizing views about Andy Reid, how people feel about him in the playoffs. What's your take on that?
I know Andy Reid has had a bit of a bad luck streak in the playoffs. I think he's an outstanding coach, and I think Patrick Mahomes is probably the most promising guy he's had so far. I'm not going to call him the best ever because it's been one season, but I like their chances a lot better than all the seasons with Alex Smith, and I think they work pretty well together, so Patrick Mahomes is going to get it done. Yeah,
I think that's fair, and if you ask me, this is going to be one of those games where it's a situation where the last team that touches the ball will probably end up winning the game, or whichever team forces that one turnover. I'm looking at the matchup of this Colts offensive line that has just looked better and better. They really just dominated a very good front seven in Houston, and I can see the Colts really controlling the clock. T.Y. Hilton should be able to make a few plays against the suspect secondary of Kansas City. And then on the flip side, you see this Chiefs team that obviously in the past, they've looked this hot. Maybe not quite as good as they did this year because, again, Mahomes is a kind of a different beast than Alex Smith was. But then they've gone into the playoffs and they've lost to a Tennessee Titans team that they should have beat. They've blown a massive lead to the Colts in the past, albeit in Indianapolis. I'm actually going to take the Indianapolis Colts here. I think that Andrew Luck at this very moment is actually the better quarterback, even though they're both arguably the 2 best in the league at this moment. And at the same time, I'll say, though, this is 100% a coin flip. If Patrick Mahomes has the ball down by 3 with 2 minutes left, the Chiefs will win the game. If Andrew Luck has the ball down by 3 with 2 minutes left, the Colts will win the game. My money's going to be on the Colts, but this one could really go either way. So, disagreement so far. Let's see how we're feeling about this.
The thing is actually that I think the Colts have probably a better shot to make it further than the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs could beat either the Patriots or the Chargers. I have the Colts in both of those matchups in a better place, but in this specific one, I'm not too sure. I think it's first playoff game. I think they're going to show off.
That's a pretty good point. I mean, sometimes it's just the matchup isn't quite there. So, and I kind of agree with you as well. I think that if I'm a Chargers or a Pats fan, I'm a little more fearful of the Colts team, albeit you don't have to go into that Kansas City environment, which is also a pretty hostile place to go. So, really a double-edged sword there. Not funny.
The problem for Kansas City really is the imbalance. They have an outstanding offense, but a really bad defense, and that historically has never been the best thing to have in the playoffs. You look at New England. They've always had a good offense and a great defense on all their runs every single time. They never had the best unit in everything, as far as I can remember. And having the first offense and like the last defense, it's kind of like the Chicago Bears, really. You're not balanced enough. You have your defense, which is great, but your offense is, let's say, below average, and in the playoffs that can come back to bite you.
Yeah, absolutely, especially when you're going to be going up against Andrew Luck, and then you'll either be going up against Phillip Rivers or Tom Brady, and then after that, you could be going up against any of those high-powered NFC teams. The playoffs, you're right, when you have a suspect defense like that, it's very tough knowing that you're going to be going up against the best quarterbacks in the league on a weekly basis. So, moving on then, we've got the Saturday night game. The NFL ratings, whoever's responsible for that, they are loving this right now. Los Angeles Rams hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Who you got in this one?
I'm curious to hear the odds of this game, because I don't typically know the odds and the game spreads. That's kind of your thing.
Yes.
But I do think the Rams are going to win this. The most comfortable way that a playoff game could be won, really. I think the Cowboys are the weakest team that is still remaining. I think that game was the weakest game of last week. And the Rams, I mean, they kind of failed last year in the playoffs. They didn't manage to go far, and but this year the expectations are higher. This year they went into the season expecting to get there and potentially get to the Super Bowl. I think Dallas can be strong because they have a good defense, and if Zeke Elliot shows up, they'll make it a close game. I think Sean McVay is just going to outcoach Jason Garrett these days, and I think they just put up the necessary points to not allow a very close game.
So the Vegas odds makers agree with you. The spread is 7 points in favor of Los Angeles. I will say this: I made the point on the show last week when we both kind of predicted that this could have been a matchup. This could be a game that basically feels like a Cowboys home game. You know, you have a lot of Dallas folk out there in Los Angeles, transplant city, and when the Los Angeles Rams come out there as a 2 seed and see their stadium full of Cowboys fans, regardless of whether or not they admit it, that's got to be a morale loss right off the bat. You're coming out, you worked so hard just to play. And I think it's not just, I don't think it's going to be the case for every team, but because it's the Dallas Cowboys, their fans are everywhere, they travel so well. You take that, and then you take the fact that we saw the one defense that was really able to stifle this Rams offense was the Chicago Bears, and this Cowboys defense is built in a pretty similar fashion with a lot of fast, talented linebackers, fast defensive backs, and a few very good pass rushers. Jared Goff really likes to sling the ball deep, sometimes won't just take what the defense gives him, and he's not going to be able to do that against this Dallas Cowboys defense. I'm hesitant to pick so many upsets, but I think Saturday is going to be upset Saturday. I'm actually going to take the Dallas Cowboys here to pull off a big upset, and it'll suddenly, Sean McVay is going to be 0-2 in his playoff coaching career, and maybe you'll have some questions about, obviously not whether or not you get rid of him, he's a fantastic coach, but just whether or not he can kind of get over that hump, and that's just how I think this game's going to play out.
All right, that's interesting. I don't quite believe in Dak Prescott quite yet to do it, but sure, we'll see.
No, I absolutely agree. I don't really believe in Dak Prescott either. I think it's going to be another one of those low-scoring games. I just think this Dallas defense is going to find a way to really fluster Jared Goff, and I think we've just kind of seen in the past, sometimes he's very, very agitated when he's under pressure. Now moving on to Sunday. Sunday, I think, might go a little more the way people kind of expect. We've got a vintage playoff game here. These are the games that I was watching when I first got into football. Chargers, Patriots in the playoffs. Brady versus Rivers. Brady 7-0 all-time against Rivers in his career. This Chargers team is better on the road than they are at home. Patriots, the only undefeated team at home in the NFL. Who you got in this one?
So I know you're going to have the Patriots, which means that the Chargers are going to win this game. I have a proposition though. Can you name one position group, excluding head coach, that the Patriots are currently better than the Chargers?
If you can call interior defensive line a position on its own, no. Even then, no. Safety.
I'll give you like punter.
You're right. Yeah, safety not even, because, you're right. There's really not a positional unit the Pats have.
Because Tom Brady now is not playing as well as Phillip Rivers is, and that's typically the one guy on offense. And other than that, the Chargers are loaded. I mean, they're really, really good.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. And my point was going to be that if I were to be completely unbiased, and just look at this game analytically, and just if we were to ignore history for the past 18 years and just look at this matchup, the Chargers not only are a better roster and have a pretty good coaching staff. Obviously, Anthony Lynn's not Bill Belichick, but he's a good coach, and they have good coordinators. But they're really built to kind of neutralize this Patriots team. Patriots love throwing those running backs out there, kind of spreading the offense out. Chargers have a lot of really fast and physical defensive backs. Desmond King, Derwin James, Adrian Phillips. And what they did against the Ravens last week, where they trotted out 7 defensive backs and then just 4 linemen, that could actually really work on the Patriots as well, because they have such effective pass rushers in Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. Flip side, Patriots' run defense has not been great all year. Melvin Gordon, if he's healthy, should be fine. If Hunter Henry does play in this game, that's an added blocker right there. I will say, going back to your original point, I think the Patriots have a better offensive line, albeit not that much, but it is better. But if the weather is this brutal, as of right now, the forecast is calling for snow. If it's snowy, if it's 25 degrees, I'm not quite sure that Phillip Rivers can outduel Tom Brady in a Snow Bowl. What do you think about that? If it's kind of blizzardy conditions out there, do you still think the Chargers can win this game?
Well, I've read about it. I think it's going to be an advantage for the Patriots because they're more used to it. Though, one more anecdotal piece of evidence, which totally doesn't mean anything, is that the last time that Melvin Gordon played a game in snow, he broke the NCAA rushing record within 3 quarters.
Look at that. All right. Well, yeah, and I actually think that the Chargers are kind of built pretty well to play in the snow, especially with kind of the fact that they're pretty physical on both sides. It's just that Tom Brady has played in these snow games before, and we've really seen him throw it up. I don't think Phillip Rivers has ever played a game in a snowstorm. I know he's played in kind of some flurry conditions and some games that really weren't that relevant. I don't think he's ever trotted out there on a field that was all white in conditions like that. So I think that'll be very interesting. Obviously, it's still a week away. The weather conditions could change. We don't really know exactly how it's going to be. So I'm guessing then, you've made it pretty clear, your pick is the Chargers for this game.
The Chargers, yeah.
Alright, so I am going to pick the Patriots because A, I can't just pick a bunch of upsets. By the way, horrible reasons, but A, I can't pick a bunch of upsets, and B, because the only time I picked the Chargers since we started doing this, they lost, and I refuse to risk them losing based on an absurd jinx that definitely won't actually affect the game at all. That's 0 for 3 on disagreements. I have a feeling we're going to agree on this game, though. We have the Saints hosting the Eagles. Saints are 8-point favorites, up to 9-point favorites on certain books. The Nick Foles magic is continuing, but does the train stop here?
Just one quick point about the previous game again.
Oh, sure.
I don't quite subscribe to the narrative that it's really an upset to pick the Chargers at all. The only thing you really have is, the seed number, which stems from a tougher division, and the name Patriots, right?
Yes.
You look at a better regular season record for the Chargers. You look at a better player at every position, essentially. I'm not so sure if this is too much of an upset. What's the odds on that, actually?
So that's the thing is, when I say upset, it's always based on the spread. Patriots are 4.5-point favorites.
All right.
That's...
Okay, that's home field playing in that.
Yes,
for sure.
exactly. Vegas is basically telling you that the Patriots are about a point better. I'll also throw in the fact that they're off a bye. Vegas is basically telling you they're even, so.
Alright, cool. Let's get into the Eagles and Saints.
But I agree. I can agree. If you look at them on paper on a neutral field, you'd be absolutely right about that. So back to this game then. Who do you think wins this one? The Saints are 8-point favorites, which is a pretty big spread.
I'm going to keep picking the favorites and the Saints. I'm not so sure, actually. Are you going to actually go with the Saints?
I'm taking the Saints in this one, yeah. I'm taking the Saints.
Yeah, I think they're just going to... That wouldn't be the right way to end that season. They have been one of the most dominant teams throughout the entire regular season, and playing in New Orleans is completely different than playing anywhere else in the league, really. And as much as I do kind of like the Eagles storyline, I don't necessarily need to have it 2 years back-to-back. Sorry, that could become a bit obnoxious. But I like the Nick Foles stuff. I like what they did in Chicago. It was a close game. Yeah. Road ends here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, even if you watch that game, there were times Mitch Trubisky was throwing to some open receivers, and it's just that Mitch Trubisky's not very good. He's an okay quarterback, but you compare Mitch Trubisky to Drew Brees in this type of situation, it's a completely different animal. Drew Brees will probably torch this secondary, if you ask me. I believe that Teron Armstead is back as well, so the Saints actually have both of their starting tackles now, which will make a pretty big difference. And on the flip side, like you said, it's been magical. Nick Foles whipped out one more rabbit out of a hat against the Bears last week. But I think that was really more of a look at this Eagles defense go type of story. And I think the Eagles have a very good defense. I think they've proven that time and time again. But since this hot streak has even started, their only real their only real big win was against the Rams. Besides that, it was all against teams they should have beat. Teams like, the Redskins. And then even a team like the Bears, where they have a great defense, you're rushing an inexperienced quarterback, you're bound to force him into some mistakes. In the Dome, against this Saints team, I don't think there's a single team in the NFL that can go into the Dome right now and win. And unfortunately, I will say though, if Nick Foles does pull this off and win this game, I'm betting my savings account on the Eagles to win the Super Bowl, because that's it. It's over.
All right. Now I kind of want that to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens there. So that's those 4 games. This won't be out. By the time this show is released, the College Football Championship will be over. I believe we both picked Bama anyway, so...
Yep, it's happening like 45 minutes from now at the point of recording. So we don't know it yet, but once the video's up, we will know.
Yeah, so we'll see. Maybe we'll see if we were right or not. You got any other thoughts? Any thoughts on all of these games across the board, football in general? Anything else you want to share or discuss before we say goodbye to these lovely viewers?
One more thing to mention, just a few minutes before we started the recording, I hopped onto NFL.com one last time to check the news. Did you hear about Matt LaFleur?
I did not, no.
Supposedly being hired as the Packers head coach.
Really? Now, is this just a rumor, or is this pretty much confirmed?
It's pretty much confirmed, I think.
Interesting.
So I like this move a lot. This is a great move, and Aaron Rodgers couldn't have got there much better.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He's an offensive-minded coach. I know he's from the same... I think he's from the... isn't he from, the Shanahan coaching tree?
Yeah, he's from the West Coast tree, right? Which is, Mike Shanahan, John Gruden, leading up to Bill Walsh. And you have a lot of guys in the league who represent that same philosophy and are successful with it. Look at Sean McVay, Jay Gruden, and Kyle Shanahan. So he's one of those guys as well, and that has to be successful. If you give him a guy like Aaron Rodgers...
Yep. Exactly. And at that point, you just got to hope the Packers draft well, bring in another player or two. Their defense is, I think, better than people give it credit for. So really, just develop some sort of creative offense or good offense that gets Aaron Rodgers to work to his strengths, which are a lot of them. The man has a lot of strengths.
I like this. I like this a lot. This is great news for Packers fans.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also, it's better than them going. I think it's good to, I know there was kind of some rumors about, Josh McDaniels, which I think him and Aaron Rodgers would have been a very poor fit with each other.
Yeah.
Two kind of egos that would have clashed a little too much. You have that. And then I was also hearing rumors about Lincoln Riley. I'm not quite sure if you want to put all your trust in a college coach. Cliff Kingsbury, which again, a college coach who's not really winning many games. I know these are just kind of the big names. I'm sure there was a lot of lesser known coordinators that I'm not giving enough credit to, but I think Matt LaFleur, I think that's a pretty good call. And how do you think that affects Tennessee's offense now? They were already pretty average. Do you think they kind of go into the tank next year?
Well, they were pretty average, but Matt LaFleur had a season as their offensive coordinator now. I'm not too sure what's going to... It depends a lot on Marcus Mariota, I'm going to be honest. This is kind of the proven year for him now, just as it's with Jameis Winston. And it's not the first proven year for these guys, but probably the last. So it's going to depend on him and who are they going to bring in to replace LaFleur there. I don't love it, specifically seeing how the division is pretty tough at the moment for the Titans. But the Packers, I like that move a lot. Josh McDaniels, there's two things that I would definitely consider before interviewing that guy or hiring him. First of all, he dropped out on the Colts.
Yes. And
they probably, and I don't really want that type of guy as, the head coach of my football team. Kind of the disciplinary and role model. I'm not sure about that. But also, Colts are doing better with Frank Reich than they probably would have with Josh McDaniels.
I agree.
And you know how Bill Belichick has a tendency to kind of lift up everyone around him. Matt Patricia hasn't really been doing that well in Detroit, so that's kind of two question marks. I think Josh McDaniels is going to take over in New England as a head coach and be mediocre there, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Bill Belichick coaching tree, it's not been very... it hasn't really lived up to expectations. Back in the old school days, even guys like Romeo Crennel, guys like Eric Mangini, a guy like Bill O'Brien even, who hasn't. I mean, Bill O'Brien's been fine, but he certainly hasn't living up to the Bill Belichick allure that you kind of expect. So I absolutely agree. And then one more I want to talk to you about. What about Mike Munchak to the Broncos? That's not certain, but it's feeling like it's going to happen. What do you think about that move right there?
Well, it's probably a better idea than bringing Mike Shanahan back.
Yeah, I guess you're right about that. I don't know. Mike Munchak just doesn't really get me excited. It feels like that he feels like the type of coach that's going to just lead them to another 7 or 8 win season.
Yes. See, the thing is with the Broncos at this point, you can rotate coaches as much as you need to draft your quarterback.
Yeah.
And if John Elway, as great as he's been, if he can't scout, he can't find a quarterback, he's the next guy who needs to leave because they've had a bunch of guys now. Case Keenum, not the answer. Paxton Lynch was not the answer. Tim Tebow, even before that, was not the answer. Okay, they had Peyton Manning, but then Brock Osweiler, none of that really worked out. So
exactly, no.
That's the hole that Denver really needs to fill because the defense is fine.
Yeah, exactly. And Denver had a chance. They could have taken Josh Allen. They could have taken Lamar Jackson if they wanted to.
Right.
Both those guys might have at least done something. They could have tried to trade up to get their hands on a Sam Darnold, and instead they decided to take a pass rusher as if they needed more defensive help. And don't get me wrong, I love drafting a pass rusher, but when you're as quarterback needy as Denver, and you've already got a pretty good roster aside from that, I say you take a gamble and go for the quarterback. That's just my opinion.
I can see them actually do it this year. I'm not sure if they still want to go with Case Keenum. At least take a guy and let him sit for a year.
Yeah.
It's not like this year's quarterbacks class is the best anyway, but you can get some guys, sit them for a year, and they tend to turn out better than the guys who are thrown to the fire day one anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously Dwayne Haskins isn't going to fall to them. If they want, they could maybe even just accept a tank here and try and get into the Justin Herbert sweepstakes next year. I'm sure some other guys will emerge. Drew Lock's he's kind of an interesting prospect. Not quite sure if enough guys will fall into their hands, so we'll see. But yeah, the Broncos are definitely in an interesting situation, and I feel like hiring Mike Munchak, as a Chargers fan, it doesn't really instill any fear. I'm like, all right, cool. That's another team.
Yeah, it's going to depend a lot on how many teams actually are willing to trade up this year, because I can easily see like the first 6 picks being defensive linemen, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, as we've kind of seen before, teams will trade up if they can get their hands on a quarterback. And if you're lucky for your Niners, someone's going to trade up to that number 1 spot, and you're going to get your hands on Nick Bosa at number 2. So you can cross your fingers if that ends up happening.
I actually still have to do some scouting on Bosa and Allen to really pass my judgment on who I like best off the edge.
Yeah, same. I have a lot. I've done a little bit of both. I personally think Bosa's in a league of his own, but Quinnen Williams, Josh Allen, they're both pretty good. I really like Jeffrey Simmons so far as well from Mississippi State. I think he might be he's supposed to go in the top 10, but he could end up being the best player of those guys, honestly. He's fantastic. Right. But I'm with you. I usually start my scouting around the end of the Super Bowl. So
right, exactly. Because up until then, you got NFL to talk.
Exactly. All right, folks.
I'm not too sure about the draft, actually. Like, there's also a lot of quarterbacks that are going to be trade targets. Like, you have Nick Foles, you have Tyrod Taylor, you have Nick Mullins, all of which have proven themselves and are probably, at this point, better than Eli Manning, Blake Bortles, and the like.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have a team like the Jags. They have a roster that's ready to go. The Giants kind of think at least they have a roster that's ready to go. I don't know about that. I mean, kind of a name you're not really going to hear much about, but possibly. I mean, look at the Lions. Look at Matthew Stafford. That's not really working out. Maybe the Lions look to see if there's someone that's interested in that. See if they can get themselves a major haul and kind of start over there, because the Matthew Stafford experiment, no one really talks about it, but it has not really been working out in Detroit since he was drafted. And who knows? We can get a couple first, couple second round picks for him. Get rid of that contract.
Yeah. Well, that would be a total rebuild for Detroit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know it's not popular, but I'd consider it.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. That's a major commitment. I think personally that Matthew Stafford is probably the least problematic guy.
Yeah, absolutely. That was kind of my like crazy world type of idea, but just kind of throwing some stuff out there that might shock some people. Yeah,
we'll see how it goes. Free agency is an interesting phase.
Yeah, we've seen a lot more trades lately, so could definitely see some of that.
We could actually, if you want to, we can in the offseason we can have like weekly or maybe not, maybe bi-weekly videos like this as well, talking about trades, free agency, and then draft scouting.
Absolutely. We absolutely could do that. You'll see a lot of that right here. So, yeah, I think with that, we're about ready to wrap up then, right?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, guys, thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it. We love doing this. Make sure you check out both of our channels, whether you're watching on mine or on Alex's, Beyond Football, MadMen Sports, both plenty of good content. We'll see what happens this weekend. Obviously, based on our picks, it could go either way. And until next week, we'll be back for the AFC and NFC championship games. We'll see you next time.